Good to catch up with you again, Vineet.
Absolutely, Joe. Thank you.
Yeah, so we're recording this right when you got back from the Microsoft Build conference. So I wanted to start there. From a CTO perspective, what were your top takeaways?
Absolutely. I think the Build conference that Microsoft organizes every year, and this was after almost 2, 3 years that we were doing it in person. It was certainly a very, very enriching experience. Some of you may have already been seeing all the announcements that Microsoft made out there. But for me personally, I think some of the key highlights was the entire focus on the platform's capabilities that Microsoft has evolved on Azure to support building more and more modern applications using OpenAI capabilities. Right, the technologies that enable users to be more productive. Right, us to be more productive in building those solutions. Things like prompt flow, things like content safety studio, things which are enabling measuring the accuracy of the solution. Many of those capabilities that have been built into the platform, including more and more stuff around Copilot, right, really provides a lot of capabilities for us to build modern applications and leverage all the power of OpenAI and do it faster and in a much more structured manner.
Great, great. So you mentioned a couple of key announcements that were made at the Microsoft Build conference from a technical tool standpoint and from an OpenAI platform capability standpoint. Can you share some of the thoughts behind those key announcements?
Absolutely. As I mentioned, I think one of the things that I found very, very powerful was this whole concept of prompt flow and the prompt flow studio, right? That Microsoft already had Azure AI Studio, where you could do a lot of experimentation about the OpenAI models and what kind of results you could generate out of that. But the prompt flow engine, and I can show you maybe a quick sort of a snapshot of what I saw out there, right? And that is something that really, really adds to our ability to build a very, very rich interface for building the entire prompt flow, right? Prompt engineering, as you know, is become quite a bit of a modern need for us to be able to leverage the OpenAI technologies, and having a UI like this, where you can chain a lot of activities that go into making the best usage of the OpenAI models, right? Where you could instruct the model in terms of the meta prompt, the activities that it should be doing, what it should be careful about. I think those are some of the capabilities that really, really add a lot of developers' productivity when building OpenAI related solutions.
Interesting, interesting. You mentioned Copilot earlier. How do you see the announcement around the Copilot technology changing the solution landscape, both from an ISV standpoint as well as from a large enterprise company standpoint?
I think Copilot, in my opinion, was one of the very, very interesting announcement. Not just the fact that Copilot is part of all the Microsoft platforms and the products that they're bringing in, and some of them are already there, some of them are coming over the next few weeks. The ability for Microsoft, like they have traditionally done, in providing you the tools and the framework to build your own Copilot application, I think really, really differentiates the way Microsoft approaches this problem, right? If I show you, again, a quick sort of a snapshot of, how Microsoft looks at defining what Copilot is, and then more than that, also talk about how Microsoft is releasing what they call as the Copilot stack. That actually differentiates quite a lot from what is going to provide you the ability. So the way Microsoft has explained, and I completely agree, it's a very simple definition of an application using modern AI, right, which is including OpenAI technologies, but others, to assist you with complex cognitive tasks, right? Now, that's what Microsoft is building in its products. But when you look at you being a architect, a designer, an application, the ability to use what they are calling as the Copilot stack that has the plugin, the Copilot related technologies, the AI orchestration, which includes what I earlier mentioned as the prompt flow engine, and of course, the foundational model and AI infrastructure that exists, right, gives you the ability to use your same development tools, including Visual Studio and GitHub, to build your own co-pilots for your enterprise applications. And that really provides a lot of capabilities that add to you being able to build modern applications. So I'm just giving you a snapshot of how the Copilot stack looks like. And
Yep.
this is something that I believe is going to be really powerful in providing abilities for you to build modern applications.
Interesting. Interesting. So since we last spoke, you've also been on the road. WinWire has been a sponsor of the Microsoft OpenAI and Healthcare Roadshow along with Databricks. And I know you were presenting at and talking to a number of healthcare executives across the country in the last 6 weeks. What were the most frequently asked questions from the healthcare executives that you spoke to at this roadshow?
Absolutely. I think we were very proud to be working along with Microsoft in doing these HLS roadshows. You may or may not have heard about them, but they happen in 7 cities. And we participated in each one of them. And I did a session around HLS leveraging OpenAI and all the other technologies. While Microsoft also talked about their product capabilities, we talked about examples that we have it published in our website also on how you can leverage OpenAI to build HLS solutions. And as I talked to the customers, as I looked at building the solutions, I think the most prominent questions that again come up, which I think is still very much relevant, and Microsoft as a platform, along with OpenAI, is trying to address, is things around content safety. How do I ensure that my interaction with the AI technology, which is sort of a black box from an OpenAI foundational models, right? That provides me the accuracy that I'm looking at. That provides me, the clean information that I'm looking at. And there are tools to both manage the content safety, both as you're generating prompts, as people are asking questions, and what the OpenAI is generating, to be able to control that. If I show you sort of a quick sort of a snapshot of what Microsoft has launched as what they call as the Content Safety Studio, and that allows you, while building applications, to work with managing text or images or anything else, and have different levels of severity tied to different kinds of information that may have to be managed in your application. I think this really gave confidence to many of the customers about the ability for the platform to have these controls and governance that is required. In addition, I think the second question is also about accuracy of the information, right? As we all know, in a typical machine learning solution, you could assign some level of confidence or some level of accuracy to the response. OpenAI, on the other hand, traditionally does not have a level of how accurate is the information. Microsoft has also built capabilities in the Azure AI Studio platform, where you will be able to grade the responses, right, and build those levels of confidence scores, right, where you can assign and then measure over time. The model can learn from it as to which are the more accurate responses and which is it where it needs to improve on the responses as such, right? Another thing is working with your own enterprise data. We all know OpenAI models are all working on public data, but the real benefit is when we are able to use those capabilities in our own enterprise data.
Let's talk about the healthcare customers, again, that you were speaking to at the OpenAI Roadshow, Vineet. How are they starting to leverage Azure OpenAI services? Are there some use cases that bubble to the surface?
Yes, I think we met a all sorts of healthcare customers, from life sciences to providers to payers. And everybody is certainly looking at how this technology can, one, save them time, right? Improve the quality of their services to their customers, in case of providers, to the patients, to the life sciences, to all the interactions that they have with FDAs and everything else. But I think the one of the patterns that I found in the questions and the kind of interest that is there on leveraging this technology is, how can it improve my business processes? How can it speed up my ability to process huge volume of data? Now, there have been technologies to be able to do that for quite some time, but the ability for OpenAI related foundational models to speed up the processing of huge amount of textual, image, and other kind of data, and
Right.
provide kind of insight that normally is not possible using traditional models, or you will need to spend a lot much more time and money to build that. I think was something that people were very, very interested in. Most of the customers are experimenting. They are doing POCs and pilots, and we are actually fortunate to be engaged with several of the customers in doing those POCs and pilots, in helping them, understand the capabilities of this particular technology, and able to work with, certain business use cases that is going to provide the results. And then I think customers are going to see the value and implement it into more production scenarios.
Interesting. Interesting. I'm sure as the technology continues to evolve around OpenAI, and it's happening at such a quick pace, there are still a lot of common challenges that enterprise companies are facing. How should they look to overcome those common obstacles?
I think uh, two, three things that I can mention about challenges and the way I'm talking to various customers about overcoming them. I think security is such a broad term, but security in the sense of our security of the data that is being processed by these foundational models,
Right.
the accuracy of the information that is coming out of these kinds of applications, and lastly, right, looking at these all capabilities make sense, but how do I really integrate it into my enterprise applications? I think those are some of the areas where customers are evaluating, thinking about it. There are different viewpoints that come into the picture. And the way we are looking at it on the security side, I think you need to look at both what the platform provides, Microsoft Azure. If you go to the Microsoft Azure website /security, you will find all the various compliance certificates that the platform itself is taking care. Microsoft, along with OpenAI, is also ensuring that the models themselves are, capable of, processing your data in a much more secure manner, right? There are safeguards that have already been put into the platform. In addition, as I showed you earlier, um, Content Safety Studio, which is a tool that Microsoft is providing to you as the enterprise, you'll also be able to build more controls over how the OpenAI is going to behave, how secure your interactions for your end users would be. And the second point that I mentioned is about the accuracy. That I think is going to be quite a bit of an effort that enterprises will need to spend and take time to build accuracy measurements. There are tools that will be able to define different levels of scores to the output that is generated, but there is always going to be a need for human intervention to verify, to grade, to assign what the machines and the models are producing as the output, so that over time, the accuracy of the applications that are leveraging OpenAI foundation models is much more trustworthy by the end users. And as I said about the last point around how do you really leverage it as a part of the enterprise application, right? How do you actually just get started with it? There are several examples that people see out there on ChatGPT. can do this and can do that, but how do you leverage it into your enterprise application? Again, as I said, I will be covering some of that in the webinar, but building a Copilot kind of an application is one of the thought processes, one of the patterns that I would really recommend customers to start thinking about for your own application. Let's say you have an enterprise application that is providing information from your research documents, right? You may have built a search interface onto that. You may have built some other kind of capabilities for users to be able to interact with that research information. If you build a Copilot which has a more chat-based interface along with it, right, it'll be a more natural, intuitive interface for the end users to be interact with the same data using natural language. And that's what Copilot stack and the Copilot capabilities on the Microsoft platform will provide you.
So we spent a lot of time talking about perspectives and conversations you've had it within the healthcare industry, but WinWire also has a number of clients in the retail and the high tech space. So before we closed, I did want to ask you a couple of questions in what you're seeing and hearing within those industries. From a retail customer perspective, how are they starting to leverage Azure OpenAI?
In the retail industry, I think one of the biggest capabilities is all about customer service. How do you provide better customer service? How do you even learn from the customer service that you have been providing? There are lots of patterns, but there are capabilities in the OpenAI platform which allows you to understand your interactions with the customer, your contact centers, analytics that you can do, and even improve, right, what you'll be able to work with your contact center and your customers in terms of providing them the customer service online, on the phone, and be able to do a lot of analytics on the data that is captured and continue to do that improvement over time.
How are manufacturing customers leveraging Azure OpenAI?
As you see manufacturing customers, I think R&D scenarios in terms of experimenting and leveraging OpenAI models for identifying anomalies in their manufacturing processes. Understanding the behavior and the productivity of certain implementations that they may have done over the last few years, and understanding patterns within those, and to improve productivity and output generated from the entire business process. Those are some of the areas where we are looking at OpenAI can really provide a whole lot of value.
Last industry I wanted to ask you about today, Vineet, is the ISV industry. WinWire has a lot of clients in that space, so I'm just wondering what you're seeing in terms of their use of Azure OpenAI.
Sure. ISV, the independent software vendors, I think they have really been, and something that I haven't talked a lot about during this call, but GitHub Copilot, right, as a technology, provides a lot of features and functionalities for ISVs to improve their entire software development lifecycle, all the way from design to building the actual solution, right, providing developer productivity, improving their DevOps processes, and also in the deployment scenarios. GitHub Copilot, integrated with Visual Studio and similar other development environments, provides developers the ability to generate code, be much more productive in terms of being able to test and understand bugs into the code, ability to speed up their entire development lifecycle, right, using various features that GitHub and GitHub Copilot together are providing. That way, what we are looking at is ISVs are thinking of as Microsoft calls it, the pair programmer model, where they will have the development teams. How can they do more in lesser time using these technologies and build more reliable and stable software, which can have a much more impact on the productivity and the profit that they can make in terms of building those solutions.
Last thing I wanted to ask you about today, Vineet, are these envisioning workshops that you are doing, WinWire, with our customers. Kind of Walk us through what's involved in an envisioning workshop. Why is that a good place for customers to consider starting their open AI journey? And what has been the most important piece of advice you've given to clients in those workshops?
Sure, Joe. I think envisioning workshops are one of those scenarios where I have seen, a lot of benefits to sit in a room with the stakeholders and be able to talk at a level where they may understand some of the basic capabilities of the generative AI as a platform, Azure OpenAI as a service that is enabling those generative AI capabilities, and then evaluate various use cases and POCs scenarios where they can actually use that. As I've spoken to customers, there is different levels of knowledge and seriously some level of confusion on what the generative AI capabilities and technologies can do. Clarifying that confusion, answering some of those questions that they may have about the capabilities of generative AI, giving them the confidence on security, content safety, governance, all those inputs gives the stakeholder a lot more information to make decisions on how to incorporate it into their planning of leveraging this for their enterprise solutions. Uh, I do this anywhere between 90 minutes to 2 hours with the right set of stakeholders in the room. We show demos of how we see these technologies being able to, provide the value that we talk about, but also talk about use cases specific to their industry. And something that we have seen where generative AI related technologies is going to really make sense. Because one thing is, it's not a solution for every kind of a problem, right? The other technologies are still out there that will be leveraged to build solutions, but clear out that confusion and provide that roadmap on where generative AI will be beneficial in your entire enterprise application planning journey.
Sounds like a very good use of 90 minutes to 2 hours of an executive's time.
Absolutely, and look forward to having such an envisioning session for any one of you. If you're interested, please do reach out on our website. Talk to us, and we'll be happy to talk to your stakeholders specifically about what problems generative AI and Azure OpenAI services can solve.